Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So quite a few people have asked me about hardening plants off and the method I use to harden plants off. And that's what we're doing today. We're taking out everything from the greenhouse and we're going to leave it out on the lawn for a few hours and allow the plants to get exposure to the weather. So we'll show you what we're doing. I'll show you what we've got in our greenhouse and the things that we need to go. Hello, buddy. And the things that we need to harden off. G. So we had a quite cold frost last weekend that damaged quite a lot of people's crops. In all honesty, I suffered a little bit with that. I was a little bit too eager, put a few tomatoes out, and 3 out of 6 of my tomatoes are dead. Three are going to make it, but a couple of them are struggling. And we've got a bit of frost damage on our potatoes as well. But not to worry, I mean potatoes are fine, they'll recover, they're very strong plants. But plants like these that we've got in here, these are very delicate plants. I mean, I've got my gourds, and these gourds are already starting to fruit. If you look at that, we're already starting to get fruit on there. And this is not going to go out until, for at least another week yet. I mean, this one, it's in its final position. All we need to do is lift the pot out and get it into where we want it to stay. So that particular one, that's not going anywhere until we're ready to plant it out. So the other things that we've got in here, we've got quite a few sunflowers. Now these sunflowers, some of them have started to be planted out. I mean, some of the plants are getting quite big for the pots they're in, and they're desperate to get into some open ground. So we might actually be brave enough and plant a few of them out. We've got some pumpkins over there. They're starting to look a bit yellow. They need a feed. We've got some shofri hodu, shofri lao. They're the ones with the white veins on the leaves. I've got loads and loads of aubergines. Look at this aubergine plant, absolutely beautiful. I think I'm going to get that into a pot today as well. So Khadi, if you want to take that outside. Most of these aubergines will stay in the greenhouse, but some of these, I'll find a nice warm spot for them in the garden and I'll put them out there. So we've got loads of hyacinth beans, some peppers, some chilies, more aubergines that need potting up. These are aubergine seedlings that need potting up. Tomatoes, more aubergines, more pumpkins, deshi lembu. I've got my sweet corn over there that I think I'm going to put into individual pots. We haven't had access to them. I'm going to pull them out and give them a feed. Some of them are getting a little bit yellow, so they need a bit of a feed there. And this is what I'm actually going to do. So with some of the peppers, I'm going to pot them up like this, with a couple of marigolds in there, and just pot them up full of compost and let them grow up in that. If we get a decent summer, then they can stay outside, and if it's not too warm, they can stay in the greenhouse. And it'll give me that flexibility. But today's about hardening plants off, so what we're going to do is we're going to get everything out of the greenhouse and get it out on the lawn. And today's actually a really good day to do it because it's a little bit overcast, so we haven't got that really strong sun beating down on the plants. We're getting sunny spells, so the plants will gradually get a little bit of shade and a little bit of sun. And we've got a gentle breeze out there as well, so they're going to be constantly getting that little breeze and it'll help thicken up their stems. So let's get all these plants outside and we'll see what we've got outside and what we need to do to each one out when we get them out there. Everything needs to go. Everything needs to go. Just put it on the grass up there.
Come on, I'll give this Zach and you take off.
It's okay, take him. Leave you take him.
There were two pots that had holes at the bottom, and there's worms sticking out on everyone. Look. But look, there's worms sticking out on everyone.
It's okay. It's okay. It just means we've got good soil, that's why.
Zachy, give tap. I give a tap. That one has one.
So that's it now. Everything's out of the greenhouse, and this is it. It looks completely empty. It looks like a massive space in here now. Now with all the plants outside, and I'll show you how many plants we've got outside. What we've got left in the greenhouse is some coriander planted in the ground. We've got some Bangladeshi denga planted at the back. and we've got a lone tomato here so far. It's the first tomato that I planted into the greenhouse. So what I'm going to do is we've got some suckers, so I'm going to just take these suckers off as well while I'm here. There we go, that one is off. Yeah, so that one sucker. I'm just going to take that bottom leaf off as well, because I don't want splashes up onto the plants when I water and cause diseases. And if that one does, well, I'm going to give that one a trim because I don't want it touching the plastic either. So yeah, I don't want it touching the plastic and getting condensation and then getting diseases. So I've got one little compost pile there, which I've got peppers and aubergines planted into. They need some water. These bottom leaves that get nibbled, these can all come off. Always with the bottom leaves, I like to take them off and keep a nice clean plant at the bottom. The same with these peppers. All these bottom leaves, it's a bit dry in here. We've not been able to get far back to give this a water, but we'll get these watered as well. There we go. Yeah, it's very dry in here. This needs water, so we'll get that watered today. So now let's go and have a look at the plants that we're hardening off outside. I'll show you what we're doing with them. So these are all the plants that were in the greenhouse that are now out on the lawn, having a little bit of a exposure to the fresh air and the sun. Getting the plants out like this gives us an opportunity to give them an inspection and see what's going on with them, because what they've done for a lot of the time through the winter while they've been sown is they've been rammed into that greenhouse. There's been very little place to maneuver just to get them to grow. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start inspecting these plants and having a look at what's going on with them, and it's a good opportunity to do that while they're out like this. So how we go through this hardening off process is on a day like today when it's kind of overcast and we're getting sunny spells and cloudiness again. It's nice to get them out and get them exposed to that direct sunlight, and also with the breeze, they're getting that gentle breeze. The stems on some of the plants will start thickening up. You'll notice the plants become a lot tougher to the touch as this process goes on. Some of these plants, like these sunflowers, they just need to be planted out. It's warm enough. If the breeze, oops, it's too tall to even stay stood up. If it stops getting so windy, we'll get more of these sunflowers planted out. It was a little bit too windy to plant as many out yesterday as we wanted to. But what else we'll do is we'll start experimenting over the next couple of days. We'll take a couple of the plants that look a little bit tough, or those plants that are desperate for that ground, open ground, we'll get them planted into the ground. I mean, we've been doing this now with most of these plants that are in here for at least a couple of weeks. I mean, the minimum time that I'd recommend for hardening off is at least 10 days. So I've still got plants inside the house actually. So what I'm going to do with this process now is we started this a couple of weeks ago. So we've been slowly acclimatizing the plants outside one by one. Some of them, today is the first time they've been outside because they're right at the back of the greenhouse, and some of them have been out here quite a bit. So if this was the first day that I put those plants outside, what I'd do is I'd find a time of the day when it wasn't too bright. I'd take them outside and make sure it wasn't too windy. I'd put them in a nice sheltered position and then let them get acclimatized to the weather, and that's what I'd do for a few hours on day one. And then on day two, then I'd give them a bit more exposure. I'd take them out in late afternoon, so after the noon sun, do you know, when it's really intense, I'd take them out late afternoon and put them in a shady spot and slowly move them from the shady spot to a more sunnier position as the sun's rays get weaker. And then on day three, I'd start putting them out for even longer. In the morning time, I'd take them outside, so when the sun wasn't fully up, put them in a sheltered spot, somewhere where they're going to slowly get exposure to the sun. And then as the heat of the day gets more intense, let them have a little bit more of that, but not just watch it, because in the pots that they're in, the soil will dry out really quickly and they will start wilting, and they may start getting stressed, so you've got to be careful of that. That's another method of trying to harden them off, and I'll talk about that later on in the video. the wilting method. Carrying on with day 3, we just extend that time period that they're outside for even longer. Day 4, repeat day 3, and then day 5, get them out into even more sunlight and leave them out from earlier on in the morning to later on in the evening. Day 6 and 7, just carry on with that process. And day 7, day 8, even if you wanted to, you could potentially leave them out all night. And that's what we've done with some of our tomatoes, and that's what we've done with some of our sunflowers. Since the frost has died, we've given them that opportunity to stay out for a full night, and some of those plants are the ones that we're going to dare and plant out today. This one, it hasn't been out at all, so this plant here is just too big to shift about, but we will just get it outside onto the doorstep of the greenhouse, because this is going to stay in here until for at least another few days before it gets into its final position. So we're going to move it just onto the doorstep, let it get a little bit of wind hitting it, and seeing how it reacts to that. It's just too big to handle at the moment. We'll tidy this greenhouse up. So this is the wilting method in practice. What you do is you allow the plant pots to dry out a little bit, and as soon as you notice that the leaves are starting to wilt, you give them water. And what that does is it's exposing them to a little bit of stress. Now, I'm not going to allow this to get too dry and allow this to completely wilt, especially in a pot like this, because very quickly on a warm day these will very quickly dry out. So now I'm going to give this a bit of a soak, and the way I'm going to soak it is I'm just going to dump it in a bucket of water and let it soak up as much water as it wants. I've just got a pot of water. I'll pour some over the top, and then I'm going to just leave it into the pot of water and let it completely soak in there. And once it's had a good soak and the plant feels heavy to touch and the plant's leaves start waking up again, then I'll take it out and let it drain off. But that's fine to just soak like that. Yeah, so that's called the wilting method. What you do is you expose it to a little bit of stress and it toughens the plants up that way. So this is the way that I go about hardening off my plants ready to keep outside. I've grown these plants from seed, and it's taken me months to get them to this stage. I don't want to lose them at this point, and I wouldn't advise taking that risk as well, and losing all your hard work. If you want to see how I've grown some of these seedlings from the start, you can go and check out my bottle gold planting videos. I'll put a link up here and you can go and see them. But I'm going to leave it there for this one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.